Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to United vs. Everybody. I am your host, Sean, and if this is your first time, thanks for stopping by. Subscribe to the channel if you are new, but this channel is all about you guys, all about the community, all about the fans. It's all about your thoughts, your opinion, your feedback on anything and everything United related. So you guys keep it going. You guys got us to 2K subscribers super quickly. Absolute legends. And we are on the road to 3K. So like the video, subscribe to the channel. And we're here to talk today about United's FA Cup fourth round win over Leicester at home. We're going to talk about it a win. It is a win. We do advance, but it doesn't really feel like a win in a lot of ways, does it? I mean, if you can win ugly, it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world, but that being said, I'm not at all happy with the performance because it was shit. I have loads of thoughts. I'm sure you guys do as well. So as always, we are going to kick things off with some United news. You guys know we kind of breezed through that. Danny B in the house. Good morning, my friend. How's everybody doing early on a Saturday morning? Anybody watching any FA Cup? I know City, I think, are up 2-1 against Leyton Orient. Apparently they had to bring on guys like De Bruyne and stuff just to get a result against Leyton Orient. I think that's still 2-1. So let me guys know if you guys are watching any of that this morning. Because first and foremost, the under-18s played today. They played Liverpool. That kicked off at 6. Now, I wasn't really planning to watch it because it was at Liverpool, so I didn't expect to be able to watch it. But then I saw that it was actually on MUTV, so I did manage to watch it starting probably about 15 minutes into the match. Good morning, Lionhearts. How are you, my friend? We went up 2 goals in the first half, the under-18s. Both of those from a brace from Victor Musa, who looked really lively on the night. Thought he looked really good. Liverpool did manage to pull level to make it 2-2 in the end. They pulled that back like within the dying minutes of the second half. Despite us dominating, it was both their goals were against the run of play. Liverpool first goal was on a counter, and we were switching, we were turning, we were dominating. We just couldn't quite get that final ball going. I thought Kokonki looked really good. He gets forward a lot from that deeper defensive role. He uses that left foot of his. He's always trying to put a ball into the box. He played a really good curl pass from deep with his left foot, kind of went along touchline and then whipped in around the defense, which is exactly the kind of balls we need to start playing more in the first team. But like the first team, the youngsters do tend to struggle when there's pressure on the ball, especially in tight areas when we're pressed in midfield. We do tend to kind of struggle to find an opportunity, an outlet there. Shea Lacey was back in action for the first time in a while, so he looked good. He looked lively. You can tell he wants to get on the ball. He just needs to pass the ball more. He reminds me of a young Ronaldo in the way that he wants to take it all on himself. He wants to take on the world, or like Rashford used to do. He needs to pass and move a little bit more than just dribble, but Danny says 18 seem to be collapsing with no Matanto, Ibrahimov, Biancheri. Yeah, Ibrahimov, I think, is a little bit of an injury. Biancheri obviously recovering. But they did draw 2-2, Danny. And that was just due to a late goal. Honestly, we were the better side. We're just vulnerable against some counters, and we just struggled to find that final pass. Musa nearly had a hat trick on a couple occasions, if not for just some little better finishing. And fair play to Liverpool's keeper. He did manage to make a couple of really good saves. But all in all, just, the 18s, after really dominant start to the season, struggling a bit recently, but that's okay. A draw is still a point, I guess. So it is what it is. Moving on to some transfer news. So we have some fresh links here to a midfielder. This is coming from Caught Offside. So again, take it with a grain of salt, but it is a midfielder we have been linked to in the past. And he's one I really like. So I'm trying not to get my hopes up. But Caught Offside claims that we are among a number of clubs who have made contact with the representatives of Eintracht Frankfurt midfielder Hugo Larsson. I know you guys are thinking this is what I think every time I see us linked with a player that I'm really interested in. Reportedly, there hasn't been any contact between the clubs yet, just with Larsson's camp. But if anyone is a fan of watching any Bundesliga or anything, Larsson is actually a really good player. He's been linked with a move away from Frankfurt for months. United, Arsenal, Liverpool, even Real Madrid, all linked to him as normal. He was linked with a move in January, but obviously Frankfurt sold Marmoush to City, so it was unlikely they were going to let go of their star 20-year-old midfielder as well, especially after he extended his contract to 2029. Price tag rolling around is about 60 million euros. Supposedly that's going to be enough to get Frankfurt to sell. I mean, the guy is class, though. Even at 20 years old, he's a really solid box-to-box boss. He owns that midfield. He looks a lot um, like a João Gomez, like even like a you can see I see shades of like Job Bellingham, just drifting around deep, wanting to get on the ball, box to box. He's like an Ederson or whatever, or Tijani Reinders, just younger. I think he's got a much higher ceiling than Ederson. If it were up to me, I'd still go for Hayden Hackney, but that's just me. So it is what it is. Let me see here. Larson. Yeah. Justin, good morning, my guy. How are you? Watching that Madrid derby today, my friend? I know you are. Dude, couldn't believe we let go of a 2-0 lead over 18. Yeah, it was against the run of play. They did catch us on a counter, and it is what it is. Danny B says, you put me onto him before, did I? I mention a lot of players. I talk an awful lot. Honestly, sometimes I can't remember a lot of the things I say, a lot of the players I mention, mostly because I don't keep all my slides from each show because that takes up a lot of memory in my Google Drive. So I'll delete a lot of them. So I don't remember everybody that I made. But yeah, you guys know if I have mentioned him before, obviously it's because I highly rate him. We've been linked to him in the past, but I like Hugo Larson. I'd still take Hayden Hackney because I think Hayden Hackney has the line breaking passing range that I'd like us to put in this side. He is just an excellent passer of the ball, and he's still just 22 years old, Hackney. So, and I think he would be cheaper. He knows the English game. We've got the Carrick connection. Maybe we can work something out. Maybe send him a youngster or something. Who knows? But moving on. Now that we've signed Patrick Dorgu and we have Diego Leon joining this summer, hopefully we're set at left wing back for a while. And like Danny B says, Leon played 90 again last night. Nice. But anyone holding out hope for Nuno Mendes will be disappointed because he has reportedly signed a new contract at PSG, keep him there for another 5 years, putting him among the top earners at the club. So doesn't seem like Mendes is going anywhere now. Seems like it was January or bust. Dorgu is better anyway, right? Even though now he's playing apparently on the right, but we're going to talk about that a little later on. But Dorgu's better, right? Cognitive dissonance. We love it. What is everyone saying? Justin, super annoyed that City have come back from 1-0 down to 2-1 lead. Did they win yet? They're still in the 90th minute now. I didn't watch it. I did see that they had to bring on some of their heavy hitters just to get a result. It wasn't even like Leighton scored, or they scored though, because it was Ortega OG, I believe. So Pearl, welcome back, Pearl. Big up everyone. Woeful Man United performance yet again. Where do we go from here? Onward and upward, hopefully, but we will see. We were just getting through some news right now, so. And also, anyone hopeful that United could sign Jonathan David on a free in the summer, me, for instance, could be set for disappointment. Coming from Graham Bailey again, you guys decide how reliable Graham Bailey is. But he claims that Jonathan David is now in advanced talks with Barcelona for a free transfer in the summer. If true, it's a bummer. I think that it's going to be. It's going to be about priorities. I think that getting him on a free would have been a shrewd piece of business personally. But if it seems like maybe we could be going for Gyökeres. If I don't have a problem going for Gyökeres, I don't necessarily think that just a simple change of striker is going to make a huge difference necessarily. I could be wrong though. But again, this is transfer talk coming from Graham Bailey, so we'll see. Would you guys be disappointed to miss out on Jonathan David if he goes to Barcelona, or does everyone just only have eyes for Victor Gyökeres? You guys let me know if you're bummed about that one, because now we're going to move on to the match. Not a whole lot of news, but we're going to move on to the match now. So don't forget, hit that like button and subscribe if you are new. I was happy to see Dorgu start on the starting 11. You guys saw some of my shorts that I put out yesterday. We did a couple shorts ahead of the game, both when the youngsters lineup was released yesterday because Obi Martin was playing for the youngsters, so he wasn't going to be included. But then also I did another one when I saw Dorgu was starting. But I'll admit the happiness and the excitement, right, that we all got when we saw him starting, it waned a little bit when I saw that he was on the right and Dalot was on the left. I'll admit I was a little bummed about that. I mean, after several years of needing a left back, almost a year scouting Dorgu, we signed him to the last weekend of January, waited, and then we play him on the right. It didn't sit right with me. Amorim gave a little bit of an explanation for this. He said Dogu played a lot of time on the right at Lecce and on the left. That is one of the characteristics we pay attention to a lot, to have a player like him. So it sounds like they're looking for versatile players, maybe instead of just one who's only one position, players who can do a little of both. It does help you save money. It does help you in any sort of rotation or injury crisis. But at the same time, I think a lot of us really were expecting and hoping to see him on the left. He's sometimes you do need a left footer on the right side to come inside and connect in a different way, says Amorim, and sometimes you need the right-footed player to connect and cross more balls. So it's like that. And we know that Amorim does tend to play with his wingbacks. One of them does tend to be a little bit more attacking, a little more creative, a little bit more involved, and the other one tends to be a little bit more defensive-minded. It's kind of like a lopsided setup that we saw from him a couple times. Usually in his system, one of those players is a winger and the other player is like more of a fullback. And I get that inverting the wide players. We've seen it with wingers. We've seen Pep do it with fullbacks. I get it. Ten Hag did it with fullbacks a little bit. We saw at the beginning of the season Dallo getting involved more centrally. I get it, right? It's a thing. I just don't think it was the right call on the day. But I'm not the manager. What are you guys thinking? Danny says, not really. He's another risk. Talking about Jonathan David. What makes him a risk? You let me know your thoughts on that one. Are you guys bummed to see Dorgu on the right? I was a little frustrated, but let's see here. Moving down here. As far as the match overall, you guys know I like to go through a little bit of the numbers here before I dive into my thoughts. So first half was abysmal, right? 50-50 possession. We struggled to move the ball. We struggled to kind of create a little bit of a half chance. Literally in the first half, our XG was 0.04. 0.04. Not even 0.1%. Not even 0.5%. We had 2 shots the first half, none on target. We created 0 big chances. And the only XG we had from that first half was from a set piece. That was it. Contrarily, Leicester's XG in that first half was 0.84. They had 4 shots. 3 were inside the box. 3 were on target. They created 1 big chance. And then they had that lucky goal, obviously, just like Crystal Palace, exactly what it reminded me of. Just somebody following up, somebody being in the right spot at the right time. To be fair, I mean, a lot of it had to do with our defenders not really being alert to what was going on. And honestly, that was probably the luckiest goal you're ever going to see, because Cordova-Reid knew nothing about it. They rebounded off of Onana, who, to his credit, made a decent save. Cordova-Reid wasn't even facing it when Onana made the save. He turns and it catches him on the side of the head and goes in. Knew nothing about it. To be fair, though, to be honest, that was happening a lot. If you guys go back and watch that first half, anytime there was just one of these instances where the ball was congested and it popped out, or there was a rebound, or people were challenging, it always seemed to drop to a Leicester player. It was like if you ever play FC 24-25, it was just like this weird, the way the game is coded or whatever, you go into a tackle and it always seems to go to the opponent. It's really frustrating. It just didn't seem like luck was going to turn our way until the last kick of the game. Honestly, though, the 2 halves couldn't have been more different. But then again, Amorim does tend to give his players a kick in the ass at halftime. Second half, we went up a gear. It still wasn't good enough, but we went up a gear. Possession jumped to 62%. Our XG went from that 0.04 to 1.78 in the second half. We ended up having 2 shots in the first half. We put 11 in the second half, 4 of them on target compared to 0 in the first. Created 4 big chances. We had 9 shots from inside the box, and we started winning more duels, more of these 1v1s, which, again, I don't know why it takes us so long to get going. I don't know why it takes, Amorim's hairdryer treatment, why it takes substitution sometimes for it to see that, but that needs to change. I don't know why we can't start strong. We also limited Leicester to just two shots in that half. They had no shots on target, and they created nothing in that second half. So again, it's a game of 2 halves, really. Individually, though, it was a mixed bag. Again, we were poor most of the first half at all. Starting from the back, so I think Mazraoui may not have been very good on the ball, which, again, this is why I don't like him in that wingback role. He didn't complete either of his 2 crosses. Neither of those found a target. 0 of 3 long balls were accurate. But defensively, I thought he was just fine. 4 out of 4 tackles, 5 clearances, 3 interceptions, 5 of 7 ground duels. Defensively, Mazraoui was doing what he needs to do, and I have no problem with it. He needs to work on his aerial duels, though. He needs to work on a little bit of that aerial physicality, but I'm not going to split hairs there. He gets a pass tonight, though, especially because of that recovery tackle. I think it was on Daka who was making that run. CB might be his best role in the system, Mizraoui, but he needs to improve in some areas if he's going to play there, especially if we're going to be a side that plays out from the back, because he does get caught on the ball a little too often, and he does lose it in very dangerous areas, i.e. just outside our box. But you guys let me know what you thought of Mizraoui. Lionheart says, stats are stats, but my eyes told me we were shit. Oh, we were definitely shit. Don't get me wrong. You guys know I believe in the eye test. I believe in the stats. I believe they work together. But this is, again, it's showing that the numbers can be a little bit misleading. But you guys know I like to go through some of these numbers as we go through the match. Moving on, Maguire was solid. He consistently, I think he's just quietly putting out good games. Completed all his tackles, 4 clearances, made an interception, 6 out of 9 duels, 5 of 9 long balls, 8 passes into the final third, Maguire. And he's showing a bit of that courage that he can do. He has no problem stepping up, carrying the ball into the final third if the opportunity is on. And I have no problem with that because he's not the fastest. He's not going to make the recovery if we lose a counter, but that's where his teammates need to help out in recovery as well. He did get himself into some trouble once or twice, trying to be a little too cute on the ball, especially in his own box, which he does time and time again. Instead of sometimes just booting it or clearing the danger, he tries to control it. He tries to shield the ball, and he's not the greatest at it, despite being a big guy. He got away with it once in our box. He drew a foul, but he needs to just cut that out of his game. When he does the simple things well, Maguire, he can be one of our best defenders. All he has to do is clear the danger, find a pass. There's no problem with that. Euro had a decent match, but he did show his youth on more than one occasion, I thought, especially in some of those 1v1s, kind of making those recoveries in wider areas. It was like he didn't really know how to take care of that danger, whether to clear it, whether to control it. I think that will come with experience, that will come with age. Like I said, youngsters are inconsistent, whether it's Garnacho, Højlund, Manu, and in this case, Euro. It's going to take time for them. And that's just some of those decision-making you only get with experience. Because overall, he was good, especially his passing. I thought he was showing a lot of the passing nous that we want from our defenders. He'll also need to bulk up a little bit because he's a little lanky. And again, he's young. It's going to happen. Same with Garnacho and stuff, because he needs to start getting better at some of these 1v1s and these duels. I already spoke a little bit about Dorgu. Nothing wrong there. Showed some fight, showed some physicality. Little hesitant at times, but it's his first match. So for first 45 minutes at the club, I'm not going to complain. And Dallo, we'll talk a little bit about Dallo later because he gets his own little thing. Lionheart says Coventry should have been in the final. I mean, maybe. I think that in terms of Coventry, the thing that disappointed me most about that match was just how we collapsed. It was 70 some odd minute. We were already up 3-0. Like literally Ten Hag in the first team should have been able just to go home. You should have been able to throw on the under 18s at that point and at least see out a match for 15 minutes. The way we let them back into that match was a travesty, in my opinion. That's what frustrated me most. I was watching it loaded dice. There were people who left when Coventry, when they thought Coventry scored that late winner, but it is what it is. We managed to squeak out the shootout there, but moving on to midfield, I thought Ugarte struggled a bit, especially on the ball. And we know he's not the best on the ball. I don't ask much of him when he's on the ball, personally. He's there to do the dirty work in midfield. I've seen people go in on him for being one-dimensional. I saw someone online call him like the midfield Wan-Bissaka. I don't care. That's what I want from Ugarte. Do I think he can stand to get better on the ball? Yeah, absolutely. But that doesn't to say he's horrible, because he's also had matches where he's been very good on the ball. Yesterday just wasn't one of those matches. And so I would like him to show a little bit more consistency. He was a bit behind, I thought, on the day. 4 out of 10 ground duels, 0 out of 3 tackles. He's dribbled past 3 times. He was just a little slow today. And again, it wasn't necessarily, I don't think that it was necessarily just Ugarte is slow. Leicester were just up for it. They were just constantly all over the place. And so everybody at United struggled. Bruno, as you're talking Lionhearts about stats, Bruno was an example of eye test versus stats, in my opinion. To me, yesterday, Bruno was the shining example of eye test and stats, how the numbers can fool you, because watching him, it wasn't anything to write home about, Bruno. It didn't really seem like there was much going on. The numbers, though, were actually decent. Created 3 chances, which was the most in the match. 10 out of 14 long balls for Bruno, 3 out of 4 tackles, 5 out of 5 ground duels. Again, if he can put up those numbers on a consistent basis, I don't have a problem with him playing in the pivot. I'm still not 100% convinced that he works there personally, but it is what it is. Problem is I think that I don't think Bruno can do both, and you have to be able to do both in the pivot because while his defensive numbers were fine, and he was hoofing a lot of balls forward, once he was in the final third and trying to get a little bit more involved in chance creation, it wasn't great. 1 out of 5 crosses completed for Bruno. It's very, very poor. And in fact, that one cross that Bruno completed was our only completed cross of the entire 90 minutes. Like that's not good enough. And people wonder why our strikers aren't scoring. I'm not blaming any in a single player, but when you have 90 minutes and only one cross out of like 10 or 12 or 13 attempted crosses, only one is actually completed. What is a striker supposed to do? It does make you wonder what we're supposed to do. Danny says we need a serious clear out of more of the same next season. We're working on it. We were trying. It's hard to clear players out though when they're on such big wages and quite frankly when they're shit. That's why we're losing a lot of them for free. We'll have lost like 6, 7, 8 players for free in the last couple of years alone by the time this summer rolls around, which again, another big factor in why PSR is absolutely boning us right now. But Leonard says the amount of space Harry Winks kept on getting when he came on. Yeah, Harry Winks came on and we made him look just like fucking prime, like Xavi almost. It was embarrassing. Danny thinks Bruno's time is up. Interesting. You gotta let me know why. I think that we've talked about this before. I think if a Saudi club came in the summer and offered some crazy money for Bruno, I would take it. Personally, I think that there are other options out there that I think that, not that I'm saying that they're good as Bruno, but I think it's time to start moving forward a little bit in terms of building. And I think that while Bruno is in kind of this stopgap phase right now, where we're holding on to him for as long as we can because he's helping us while we're in a rough patch. Like he still delivers, but we can't plan for a future with Bruno because he's 30. So it is what it is. And I know I sound like ageist, like catastrophizing when I say that, but I'm all, you guys know, I'm always about the club first. I'm always about the team first. I'm always about just what we're looking for moving forward. And if I think a player is not really fitting in the sky, then I'm going to start thinking about moving on. I did it with Licha. You guys know I did that video with Licha replacements recently. Now, some people might think it's harsh. I'm premature to start doing that. It's the same with Luke Shaw. You have because you know that Ineos are thinking about this. You know that Amorim are thinking about it. There's no reason we as fans shouldn't be thinking about it either. Danny says it was a disgrace. Danny says you have eyes. Don't have to tell you. He's on one today. He is on one today. I want to know why you think it though, because we might be looking at different things. I'm not saying Bruno was amazing. I'm just curious where you're getting that from. But I can see it a little bit. Manu, I thought, did not have a great match. He just wasn't getting involved. He had just 5 more touches on the night than Højlund did, and Højlund had the fewest touches. So I don't know if I like Manu necessarily in that 10. I know some people were clamoring for it for months and months, and then it's been tried. We even played him as a false 9 a little bit. I don't know. He's another one where I'm like Mazraoui, or like, where do you fit in this system right now? Is it just you're young, and so maybe we'll get a better idea as you maybe get a little older, maybe get a little bigger? I don't know. Ahmad was also quiet. He did come alive later on in the second half, like the rest of us. He created 2 chances, completed the most dribbles on the night. He won 8 of 13 ground duels again. His crosses need work again. He didn't complete either of his crosses. I do think he needs to keep hold of the ball a little better. He was losing the ball a little too easily, I thought, with poor sloppy passing, getting muscled off it a little bit easily. But again, Leicester were just all over us, so it was a little harsh to go in on Ahmad too harsh. I'm just again pointing out what I saw. Højlund, again, another quiet night, again, fewest touches. He almost grabbed a silky goal with a back heel late in the second half, and unlucky that was blocked. But it did rebound to Xerxes, who did stab it home. We saw a little bit of reminders and glimpses of what Højlund can do when he's not being played as a hold-up striker, because I thought that on a few occasions he was spinning, he was getting into space. When we had a counter, that's where he really thrives. But I've also said, his touch recently and his hold-up play has not been great. And if he wants to be a well-rounded striker, if he wants to had more dimensions to his game, he's going to have to improve on that. But I also do think that we do need to play to his strengths a little bit. So He did complete all of his dribbles. He did make a pass into the final third. We just need to see more of that. We need to see it inconsistently. I mean, Amorim kind of said the same thing too. He said a striker needs a very good team to deliver very good balls for him, and we are not helping our strikers at the moment. But it's also on Amorim to set the team up in a way that gets the most out of that, because at the end of the day, we're struggling in a lot of areas. We're struggling to move the ball forward. We're struggling to get into good chances, and then we're struggling to find the strikers, and the strikers are struggling with the opportunity. There's a lot of areas that need to be addressed. Because Xerxes also definitely is not a striker. I said it on, I think it was on Rich's channel, United TV, yesterday, but I'll say it again. If you watch Xerxes, the more and more I watch Xerxes, the more and more he reminds me of Scott McTominay in the way he plays in that role. Go watch the match again, and you'll see it. If you squint really hard, it almost looks, it's like mirror of McTominay. The way he moves, the way he runs, like once he's on the ball and he's running, Xerxes is actually pretty decent, but it's just the pace is not there. The positioning is not quite there. Like McTominay, he seems sometimes to pop up in the right place at the right time. Leinart says, we shouldn't get rid of Bruno, particularly if we're going to rebuild, but I do think his role should be reduced in the starting 11, became a squad player like we did with Rooney. Leinart says, Højlund, little spin on the ball with line was pretty cool. Danny says, can't press, selfish, too slow, not physical enough on the ball, no discipline, poor decision making. Yeah. I mean, as far as that goes with Bruno, Danny, it's nothing I haven't said before. But I've also said, like, at the end of the day, Bruno is just one of those players who can have literally 89 minutes of that, but then do something in the 90th minute that nobody else in the squad can do, which is why he's here. I'm not disagreeing necessarily. I see why he's here. Obviously, we can all see why he was given a new contract, but at the same time, if a Saudi club comes in and offers a lot of money, you take it. You just have to. We saw a lot of big numbers being thrown around this time last year. If that happens again, you take it. So we'll see what happens in the summer, but I wouldn't have a problem with someone else who can be a little bit in that creator role, maybe someone who is in their early to mid 20s who's already showing that kind of ability to create and dictate play like that. I think that wouldn't go amiss, in my opinion. So Danny says he cannot play the 8 anymore. If I see him there again, I'll lose a little confidence. Yeah, I don't like him in that deep role, and I've said that on many streams in many ways. I just, again, like you're saying, he's not physical. He's not press resistant. Yesterday, he was putting in a little bit more defensive work, but again, I don't like him necessarily in that position. I think he's just better in a more advanced role. So it is what it is. Amorim's team selection and his the way he sets us up have not been filling me with too much confidence recently. But what did Amorim have to say on this one? He had some thoughts on the match as a whole, which I will share with you. So we didn't have any energy in the beginning, especially in the first half. Then in the second half, we played a little better with a little more speed and winning second balls. Oops, wrong button. He says, I think we have to do so much better with the ball, without the ball. It was a good result, but not a good performance. I agree. It's very, very worrying and concerning and frustrating to see a manager say, I think we have to do so much better with the ball, without the ball. So pretty much we just have to do so much better everywhere on the pitch. It reminds me of, when I read that, it reminds me of that line that David Moyes had. What was that line that Moyes said when he was United manager? Like, we need to do better at defense, but crossing, shooting, all basically just said we have to do better at everything, basically. So it's very frustrating that it seems like we've taken a little bit of a step backwards in some ways. Amorim is ready to admit, though, about his role in the results right now, in the performances. He says the coach is the first one responsible. When a team doesn't perform and doesn't improve, it's the coach. And I do think that, and I've said it a couple of times, there's got to be a point where he has to start getting more from these players, whether that's changing the way we're lining up, if it's just tweaking a little bit of the way he's setting us up in terms of maybe putting another attacker who plays a little higher up the pitch. I don't know, but let me see what we say here. Lionheart says, yesterday was the first time I had to question Amorim's decisions. I mean, the first time I questioned his decision in recent weeks, because I remember I gave him a little bit of time to figure out his best 11 and whatnot. But playing Mainu in a 9 and not playing any strikers last week was really, that was a really frustrating. That was the first time I went from being a little bit impatient, giving a little grace, to just flat out just being angry with his decision. Rayan, welcome, my friend. Rayan says, would you take back Pogba to be the creative midfielder that we're lacking at the moment? Personally, no, because Pogba, I didn't like a lot of what we had to deal off the pitch with Pogba. I don't think we play in a way that suits Pogba's role anymore. I don't think that we play this. Pogba's better in a deeper role when he can spray these passes around, because defensively he's non-existent. I think that we've seen many, many times that when he dallies on the ball too long, when he wants all this time on the ball, he got pressed off the ball. He lost possession many, many times. I think a lot of people aren't remembering that. Pogba lost possession so much. He's a liability defensively because he's non-existent defensively. I think if this were an Ollie side or a Jose side, yeah, it would be fine because we get runners, we play counterattack, and he can spray these balls. I just don't think there's a place in this side for Pogba right now. Leinart says, not playing any strikers was Erik ten Hag's masterstroke against City last year, though. Yeah, I think that on the day it could get you a result, but remember what I said in the match reaction for that one. It's one of those decisions that it's either brilliant or it's a strike against you, and unfortunately it's all about the way the results go. If it worked for Ten Hag, it's brilliant. If it doesn't work for someone else, it's a stroke against you. So you really have to hope that it works. And the problem with that match, Lionhearts too, is that it was one of those matches where we needed someone who plays a number 9, because we were actually in that first half creating chances. We were putting balls into the box, but without a number 9, there was nobody there to get on the end of them. Could have had a couple more goals, I think. So again, Amorim, I think, needs to stop experimenting. I think that I'm getting very frustrated with that, and he's recognizing his role in the results. He was asked again about Højlund, because Højlund was getting a little frustrated with his lack of service. Amorim said, I think it's a good thing. I will not say one word bad about this type of behavior. He needs to understand that sometimes he has to do a job without touching the ball. You guys know that I've said that many times. Sometimes the best thing a striker can do is just the movement off the ball, pulling defenders around, making them think, creating space for his teammates and stuff. I think that is sometimes an undervalued tactic, an undervalued characteristic of a good striker, and I like that. And the problem is we saw this from Højlund last season, so I don't know why things are suddenly different. Amorim said, Højlund, he cannot get so frustrated, though, because in the next play, maybe he will have a situation near the goal. So it's a good thing, but he will improve. So basically he's saying Højlund can't dwell on these isolated moments where he doesn't get a pass or someone takes a shot instead of passing, because he could have an opportunity a couple seconds later to get on it. He needs to just move on. And we said this. I think this is going to come with youth. I think that as Højlund gets a little older, he'll learn, and it's on him though, because we saw in recent matches where, like Fulham, you could tell that it was just getting into his head. Some of the poor touches, some of the fouls that he was drawing that weren't getting called, some of the mistakes he was making, you could tell it was starting to accumulate in his mind, and he kept getting worse and worse. So he's showing, and Amorim clearly seems to see this, that he needs to just move on. And just start playing, because it's going to cause problems. Goals for George, welcome. Goals for George says, what has happened is the Kool-Aid fans have been drinking has worn off, and they woke up and realized Ten Hag was better, and Amorim is a knockoff version. Old Trafford will turn on him after 2 or more losses. Oh, wow. Goals for George is not holding back on Amorim. What do you guys think about George's thoughts there? It's interesting. I don't know. I don't have necessarily a response to that. I don't think anyone was drinking Kool-Aid, because I think Amorim represents a total culture shift at this club right now, and just moving forward, and in terms of just identity in the club and the squad. I think in terms of just representative of what Ineos and everyone are trying to do. And I'm not saying that that's guaranteed to be a good thing. I'm just saying this is, to me, what it represents. But as I was telling Dylan yesterday, we were watching it at the pub, we've also seen Ineos not hesitate when it comes to correcting decisions. We saw it with Ten Hag, we saw it with Dan Ashworth. So something's got to turn around, because we don't want to start the rebuild in the championship. Leinart says, I completely agree with you. I was just pointing it out. Yeah, no worries, Leinarts. Rayon says, we don't cross the ball enough into the box for people to get onto. Yeah, I mean, I threw a stat out there earlier, Rayon, that I didn't tally up the total crosses, but a lot of people were putting crosses in, and we only completed one cross. Only one cross found an attacker, and that was one from Bruno out of several that he attempted. So again, and Amorim said it too, we're just not doing enough to find our attackers. Let me take that off the screen for a second. But you guys, let me know what you think about what Goals for George had to say, because that's interesting. I'll put it back on the screen for a second and let you guys get your thoughts in. Amorim was asked in the presser too. I didn't put this one on the screen because it was a lot, but I'll read it to you. He was asked, so a couple months ago, you weren't so happy with Alejandro. You dropped him for the derby along with Rashford. How impressive you've been with how he's responded to that, and what did he do to win you over? Amorim said, he doesn't need a big change, Garnacho. We're talking about like the standards, just to train well, to receive the information, again, be teachable, be coachable, like I said, and to understand that we want to help him. We want to play in a different system, but it's not complicated. So he changed everything. He changed really well. He stayed on the bench like 5 games in a row. Every time he came on the pitch, it was a different guy receiving the information and playing. So it's simple things. It's not a big thing. It's just, I'm really happy, and you can see it. I think he's improving. So again, mentality. Garnacho, like Rashford, was kind of shown by not playing that you're not meeting the standards, and you're not being coachable, you're not being receptive, you're not applying yourself. And Garnacho took that to heart, made those changes, kept his head down, was professional. Rashford did not. So it is what it is. Leonard says, we don't cross because the wingers cut inside. Yeah, that is a big role. To be fair, Garnacho has been improving in that regard. He is trying to find players. I think that Ahmad does as well. I think Ahmad needs to release the ball a little sooner, though. He's holding on to the ball a little too long. So those are Amorim's thoughts. I'm going to go through mine here in a second. So don't forget to get your thoughts in as well, because as you guys know, I always have 3 thoughts on the match. Starting with number 1, we need to uncomplicate the simple stuff. We're making this very simple aspects of not only the system or individuals, we're making the simple aspects of football in general really, really complicated. When you're not doing the simple things well, you're always going to have a hard day. I just don't know why it is we struggle so much with the simple aspects of playing the game. We lack simple communication in the back line. We saw it today. There was a lot of confusion when it came to how to handle some of those long balls or some of these balls in weird areas. People didn't know who was going to come out. Onana, was he coming out? Maguire, was he doing it? Which defender was picking those up? I think that it just looked like nobody knew exactly what to do. And again, that's mentality, that's leadership, and that's simple things like who's taking charge in that situation. Add to that, our defenders repeatedly trying to control a ball, get their head up and pick a pass when there's a long ball, when we're trying to make recovery runs into channels or wide areas. And instead of simply clearing the danger, they're trying to do too much with it. They get caught in possession, they lose the ball, they try a stupid sloppy pass, and it goes right to an opponent. Like, simple decisions in those simple situations were just making way more difficult than they need to be. It was sloppy, it was careless. And again, I almost felt like in the first half we showed up expecting almost just to not have to try because it was Leicester. It reminded me a lot of that Southampton match. And we got a black eye. We got bodied a little bit, and we took us a little time. We did recover, and we did start looking a lot better. But this shouldn't have to happen. We make the simplest things way too complicated, and we make it way too hard on ourselves. Even overarching the simple thing of just show up, be switched on from the opening whistle, and just start strong. And we didn't. We're just complacent. So very, very frustrating. Goals for George says the problem is fans' patience expired with Ten Hag getting sacked. They want results. And after surviving the horror of last season, to expect fans to suffer more after Ten Hag was sacked is unreasonable. I mean, so it sounds like you're kind of saying the fans are the ones who need to change a little bit, because you're saying, the Kool-Aid fans have been drinking his worn off. They woke up and realized Ten Hag was better, but then you just said that their patience was expired. So interesting. Leonard says Eric Ten Hag should have never been offered a new contract even after winning the FA Cup. I feel what happened to LBG played a part in him getting the offer. I mean, everyone's going to have a different opinion on that, right? I think there are some people who think that, It was deserved. It's hard to sack someone, but again, we've done it before, like you said. So I go back and forth. I do think that a lot of the same issues that Ten Hag was struggling with that did leave him with sometimes both hands tied behind his back, I think they're still present because I think Amorim is dealing with it. So I can't be hard on Ten Hag and for some of the stuff and not hard on Amorim, and I can't give Amorim grace and not Ten Hag. So it's hard because it's more than just the manager. Even Sir Jim has said it himself. It's not just the manager. But I don't think that we help ourselves. So moving on. And Danny, you'll like this one here. I told you we were going to be talking about Dalot, but Dalot is an issue. Dalot, right wing back or sold? I want to know your guys' opinions because I spoke about Dorgu on the right because I wasn't agree with that, but we need to talk about Diogo Dalot because the reason I'm so frustrated about Dorgu playing on the right is because Dalot is just so bad on the left. We talked a lot recently about having a natural left footer on the left and how that's going to make a difference, how it's going to make us play faster. It's going to make us move the ball up the pitch a little more efficiently. But this match was another example of why that is, because Dalot is not a natural left footer, and it's on show. He's not comfortable on the left. He can't receive the ball very comfortably on the left. He's not comfortable taking it and then doing anything with it. His first thought is always stop, cut back onto his right, and pick a pass. It either just gets intercepted or it's just a bad pass. As soon as he receives a pass, it's like Dalot is already terrified of what happens next. He dallies on the ball. Tonight, though, or last night, sorry, I wrote this yesterday, so sometimes it'll say tonight. It's hard to get out of that mindset when you're writing. It's hard to get out of the present. But against Leicester, Dalot took it one step further, and on several occasions, he played these wild crossfield, I call them Casemiro balls, just to nobody, almost before he even looked, with his right foot again, that more often than not just went straight to a Leicester player in a very dangerous position. That's, again, simple stuff that we're doing poorly. You don't play a ball like that in your own half. That's like rule number one. And it did put us in several situations often. And in terms of crossing technique, like the actual trajectory in the ball, it was beautiful had it been on the other end of the pitch, but it was in our own half and it was to nobody. It was just the worst time and the worst area of the pitch to try that. Leicester's press had him pissing his pants. And I dare say it looked at times like Dalot didn't want the ball at all. Like he was so afraid. Like it reminded me a little bit of like McTominay sometimes, where he's hiding from the play a little bit. In this system, if Dalot were to stay, and logic tells you in this system that the right wing back should be Dalot's best position, but he's not better than Ahmad, and he's barely better than anyone else who's played there. He's barely better than Mizraoui. It seemed like a no-brainer, though, on the night to start him at right wing back if you were going to start him alongside Dorgu, but it didn't happen. And then it seemed like a no-brainer still to have them swap sides in the first half, even when it just after a couple minutes you could already see that it wasn't working. But again, that didn't happen. Very, very frustrating. Dalot said sold, starting to get pissed off why he starts all the time. Yeah, I was less mad that he started more than I was that he was starting on the left again. That was very, very frustrating. But again, I just don't know. I mean, we need him to do better because we're probably going to need to sell him because it's not working very well at all. I saw us linked with this right back at Flamengo recently. I think his name is Mateus Franca. Tentative links, again, coming from nothing, but Goal says at Sporting he had fans who limited knowledge and would believe everything he said, but at United the fan base is too knowledgeable and will suss out a con now. Nepotism always destroys managers. Where's the nepotism coming from though? I'm a little confused, but you let me know, George, because I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you. I'm just trying to understand where you're coming from and some of that. It's hard to get all that across in a chat. I get that, but I just need to understand where you are coming from. So let me know. I do think that like you said before, I think the United fan base, we can be fickle, we can be knee jerk. And yes, some of the fans are knowledgeable, but I don't think that every fan is knowledgeable. It's not to say that I think I'm knowledgeable. I'm just a guy with a ring light and a YouTube account. But I think it has more to do with kind of like what you alluded to earlier, George, in that it's been this bad for so many years, and it's not getting better. In some ways, it's getting worse. I think fans are starting to reach the end of their tether when it comes to our patience. And I think what's frustrating too is that we've seen when you look at other clubs. I think if Arne Slot wasn't doing so well, it wouldn't be as bad. But I think people are getting frustrated with Arne Slot coming in and doing well. They're getting frustrated with new signings at other clubs coming in and doing well, like Kushinov scored today for City. And we're not seeing that replicated at United. It's like you come to United and you just get worse no matter who you are. And I think that fans are comparing it a lot to what we're seeing. And I think that the recency bias with some players is hitting it. I think recency bias with coaches, and again, the comparison. I think all these factors are at play right now. Leinart says, cups are cups, and you can win them with moments, which we did. But the bread and butter is the league. We were abysmal in the league last year. No consistency, and Amorim is paying the price for it. Well, Amorim is worse in the league. They put up some graphics yesterday, and he is at the bottom of when it comes to like goal differential, win percentage. Like we've not put together back-to-back wins in the league at all this season. Now, again, you don't sack a manager in November if things are going well. That's what happened. But I think a lot of us were also hoping for some sort of a new manager bounce, some sort of a turnaround. A lot of us were happy to sit here and say, when a lot of people were against Ten Hag, like, we just want to see a system. We don't care necessarily as much about the results. We want to see consistency because yada, 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 unsustainable. But now that we have a system, the system is not quite clicking and the results are not anywhere near good enough. People are starting to get frustrated again. So, and I hear it. Darko, big up, man. Goals for George says Portuguese bias. So you're saying that he's favoring the Portuguese players. I mean, Dallow's been a regular in this team under multiple managers. So is Bruno. So I don't know how necessarily that the fact that that's not changed shows nepotism. But, I mean, it is what it is. Rand says the wingback should be able to switch sides in the game if he's doing the. I agree that we should have maybe swapped sides, Dorgu and Dallo, early on, because I just don't get it. Now, again, Amorim said that Dorgu can play both sides. He referred to Y-Scout, which a lot of clubs use Y-Scout. That's the gold standard. But at the same time, he's played most of his time on the left, so I just don't get that. Darko says fans want performances on the pitch over Amorim's honesty in interviews. I think that the glimmer of the differences between Amorim and Ten Hag, for instance, when it comes to pressers and the way he engages, I think that is I think that was maybe the new manager bounce for a lot of people. A lot of fans were happy with that because they liked the way he spoke better, they liked his personality better. But again, that only carries you so far. This is not me saying Amorim out. This is not me saying sack him or whatever. This is just me again pointing out, fans, we're all like this. And like Lionheart says, the team was already declining. Yeah, I think that there's a lot at play. Darko says Amorim never experimented without playing Dallo and Bruno. Yeah, I mean, he maybe he could do that, but we didn't have another left back in Dorgu until recently. This was Dorgu's first match, so I'm trying to see. I think I would have put, again, I'm not saying I wanted to start Dallo. I'm saying if the plan was to start Dallo, why not start him on the right? Like, if it were up to me, I would have put Dorgu on the left, Ahmad on the right, and that would have been the way I went. But I'm not the manager. On Dallo, though, it took 75 minutes for us to really start to see him show even a little bit of spark. He was about 75 minutes in, he was starting to overlap, he was starting to underlap, he was getting forward, he was staying forward, he was trying to get involved. He was getting involved in almost everything we were doing later on in the game. But again, why can't we see that for 90 minutes? Why did it take 75, 80 minutes? If you can't perform, Dallo, especially now that Dorgu's here, I think his days at United are numbered. I think that it's a balance between he's just not been good enough, and also I think what he does offer is probably just going to be better in another league. Maybe go back to AC Milan, maybe do something in La Liga. I don't know, but I don't see it working out for him because he's not a wing back. He's not a winger. Goals for George says, can you explain to me the drug that seems to give managers limitless abilities to be so smart and make decisions ordinary fans cannot understand because we are too dumb, apparently? Dorgu, right wing back. I mean, it's not a matter of fans being dumb, just because that, and it's not a matter of managers being smarter. It's just difference, and managers, they just do things. They do what they think is best, and based on a lot of factors that we don't see, like training and what goes on off the pitch between matches. We don't see any of that. There's a lot of reasons. Like a lot of us probably didn't understand at the time why Rashford was dropped altogether from the squad. Same as Garnacho. A lot of us maybe still don't understand why no striker started against FCSB and Manu started up there. We don't get that. There are reasons. Now, again, I've said this again though. That I said it about Ten Hag. Decisions, even small ones, have big consequences. You can't take them back, and these kind of decisions are the kind of decisions that could ultimately make or break your job. And so Amorim is going to need to learn. Remember, he's still a young manager. Yes, he was at Sporting for a number of years, but that was really one of his first big jobs. He managed like another Portuguese team before that for like a season or so. He's still very young. He's still learning. Same as Ruud. Ruud is very young in terms of managerial years. So I'm not saying that we just like not demand more, because I've said many times I need him to stop experimenting. I need him to find a way to get more from these players. I need him to just put his best players in the best position. I need him to start being a little bit more proactive with that. But at the same time, there's a lot going into this that we don't get. I don't think fans, just because we don't understand something, it means that we're dumb. I don't think that managers are always necessarily right. Fergie did things I didn't agree with. I'm sure a lot of us can agree. It's just, it is what it is. There's more. What I'm saying is there's more behind decisions that managers make than we realize and we see and we're privy to. And so it is what it is, unfortunately. And again, like I said, some of those decisions, they look brilliant if they work, and they are strike against you if they don't. Danny says, why did he hook the best player for us in the first half? Again, I do feel like sometimes, Danny, and it just kind of goes into what Goals for George is asking, and I think I felt this more about Ten Hag and Jose, for instance. I think sometimes managers want to put it out there that they're in charge. So I think that for sometimes, like for an instance, making a new signing and not playing him for a while, sometimes I don't know if that's hesitancy. I don't know, or if that's just the managers maybe on an unconscious level, the ego saying like, no, my tactics are so good that it should take you this long to get there. You shouldn't be able to come in and look good, because if a new signing comes in and looks good, what does that say necessarily? There's so much of what ifs and ifs, ands, or buts. I don't know. This is all just, again, another possible explanation. I wish I had an answer for you, Goals. I don't, because I'm not Amorim, but I don't think that, again, if the fans can't understand a decision, it doesn't mean we're wrong. It doesn't mean we're right. It doesn't mean the manager's wrong. The manager's right. It's like that in life, though, too. The requisite for support or love, for instance, in relationships or friendships, is not understanding. You don't have to understand and agree with everything to support things. You just have to, you can demand more, you can criticize and stuff, but you're still there. Lionheart says, Amorim will change shit around. Maybe not this season, but he's going to be successful. Yes, I questioned his decisions last night, but I haven't lost faith in him yet. I haven't lost faith in him because I do think that there's enough there for him as we usher in this new era that I've seen, that I think that I can back. I need him to start doing a little better, a little quicker is all. Dallas should have came off. Yeah, I agree. I think that Dorgu is the one who probably should have stayed on. But again, it is one of those weird decisions. You never know how. Obviously, at the end of the day, we won, but it wasn't pretty. But again, Dallo, I think his days might be numbered at this club. But you guys let me know what you think. Lionheart says, growing up in Enschede, I don't know what that is. I was totally rooting for Ten Hag, but after first season, we were getting worse and worse, and unfortunately, I did lose confidence. Yeah, Ten Hag just... It's hard to say what the issue necessarily is with Ten Hag. Obviously, he's not here anymore, so I'm not going to go in too deep on it. I was super excited when we pointed him. I used to create him in FIFA before we'd signed him, because I was, obviously, you guys know I watched a lot of Eredivisie, and I liked what I saw at Ajax, but it didn't translate. He didn't bring that. And so, plus, I think Ten Hag's talent identification was severely lacking in terms of the players he was identifying. Not all of them are bad. I'm just saying he needed to change that up a little bit. Danny says, I wish and hope someone makes a decent offer for Dallo, right? Let's hope, man, because Dallo, for me, it's all mentality. He's just, when he's not in situations that he's comfortable in, he just shrinks, and we saw it again last night. So we'll see how it goes. I don't want to see him on the left anymore. There's no reason he should be on the left anymore. I think Ahmad could probably do better on the left than Dallo, but again, I'm not the manager. So moving on, number 3, and you guys keep getting your thoughts in. Like that video, keep getting them in. I'm loving the conversation. I like the back and forth. So moving on, number 3. It was rude, the result. I think that, as I've said many times, undeserved. I think that football is very cruel, but I think that Leicester totally were the better side. They totally deserved to win. I think if Leicester fans were running out of patience with Ruud van Nistelrooy, you have to think that last night's performance might have earned them a bit of time because, again, they were the much better side. They were by far the better side. They didn't give us an inch of time or space on the ball. They didn't stop running for 90 minutes. They just couldn't quite dial it in the final phase of attack. But they did well in every other area of the pitch. Defensively, they were immense. I think Koulibaly was the guy who came on as a sub and made that goal line clearance after I thought that had gone in. Like, those are the kind of things that are you want to see from your players. And they showed that mentality in that fight through the whole match. Again, football is unfair, and this match was another example of just how cruel it can be. Again, it's worrying that we can't move the ball forward. It's worrying that we don't show up until late in the second half. It's worrying to me, honestly, and this maybe is an amorim criticism, you guys let me know. It's worrying that when we're trying to get a result, when we're trying to claw back something in the last 10 minutes, that we're leaving like Maguire in the box and we're constantly just hoofing balls to the back post for him. It's worrying to me that that's our go-to in those situations. Again, that was offside too. Didn't even talk about that. It was totally offside. We're lucky VAR was not being used tonight because I would have got chalked off. We probably would have gone to extra time. It almost the fact that it was offside almost takes the shine a little bit off of that delivery from Bruno because it was perfect delivery. So it is what it is. I don't know. Maybe the refs just wanted to spare everybody another 30 minutes of that shit show. I don't know. Amorim knew it was offside. He said it was offside. He said it was unfair. He said VAR would have taken that off. But it was nice to see, though, too, Maguire actually attacked the ball for once instead of just jumping off the back foot and like trying to get out. He actually went off the front foot. He got his head behind it. That's the kind of heading technique I need to see more of from him because that's like the first time I can recall seeing him actually do that. But it was offside. What are you guys saying here in the chat? Oops, sorry. Goals for George says, what has happened was the Eric Ten Hag out channels expected Amorim to come in and show style and results, but unfortunately he has put eggs on their faces and are jumping ship early. I mean, we know that, fan channels tend to be a little reactionary because I think fans, and especially United fans, do tend to be a bit reactionary. This is why I wait usually a night if I can to do these reactions, because if I'd done this yesterday, especially after a Guinness or a couple Guinnesses, it would have not been the same. But I think that the fan channels, they do. I'm not trying to criticize anybody in particular. I think that that's just part of the appeal of fan channels. I'm not saying I'm better or anything. It's just not the way I am as a fan. I don't like to rant and yell and whine and complain. I'm not trying to call anybody a whiner. I'm just pointing out what I don't like to do as a fan. So, but I have no problem with anybody else venting, whatever. That's why we're here as well. I just want your opinions. I want your thoughts. But I think that people they expect, like we said, they expect too much. Again, it's recency bias. It's this any port in a storm. It's the grass is always greener kind of mentality. They think that just a simple change is going to make a difference. This is why, George, I don't think that just changing the striker is going to make a difference necessarily, because there's more to it than just the striker. For instance, there's more to it than just the manager. And Sir Jim has said it. We've all known it. It wasn't just Ten Hag. It isn't in it because it wasn't just Ten Hag. It's not going to just be Amorim that makes the difference, if that makes sense. There's so much more to it, and it's going to take time, and it's not going to be overnight. If we had done this whole Amorim thing after Fergie, immediately after Fergie, we might be in a different place now. But because there was no plan, there was no structure, we had shit people running things, we kept buying 4 managers instead of having an identity and a culture. This is why we are where we are now. This is the first time we're trying to change it, but you can't just wipe off and forget and clean slate all the 10 years that came before it, which is what Amorim inherited, what Sir Jim inherited, what we all inherited, what we still have to clear out. It's going to take time. Leonard says, on his day, Dalla was decent. I mean, I haven't seen that in a while, and you guys know how I feel about the phrase on his day. I feel like if you have to say that about a player, then they're not the level that I would like to see starting at United personally. He had a decent season in Ten Hag last year, but Liner says, go for Jordan, but that's on those channels, not on Amorim, yeah. Yeah, it is a bit unrealistic. And in my case, when it's unrealistic, it's unfair. But that's just how I feel. Liner says, fact is, under Ten Hag, United were getting worse every season. He had to go. I just think, Yeah, I mean, I don't want to rehash the Ten Hag era. I think we got to move on from that at some point. Goal says 50% back Ten Hag till the end, 50% wanted him gone. Amorim came in with a half the fan base upset. Ten Hag was sacked, and we're in a wait and see mode. So now they are looking intently. Can't see the masterpiece. Well, it's been here a couple months. I don't think you're going to see a whole lot in that short period of time. Lionheart says 50%. When I see nice rounded statistics like that, I do have to challenge them and ask, how do you get? I'll let you guys work that out between yourselves. Danny says, was his season last year really that good? I think the main thing I saw from Dallo last year, and because it's not technique. You guys know I've criticized Dallo for like his final ball just not ever improving. Like maybe if he puts in 20 crosses, maybe 2 of them will actually find their target. For me, the difference last year for Dallo was his mentality. He was really fighting. He was really getting pumped up, and now he just looks scared. He just looks frightened. I think that we've seen I think what we've seen too is a shift in the way teams just in general, especially in the Premier League, how they're pressing now. They're pressing not just high like a gegenpress. They're sitting in between like our midfield and our defense. They're making it really difficult to move the ball. And then when you add to that the way we play, this slow play out from the back, we're trying to find Dallo. We're trying to play it wide, get it forward kind of thing. That only adds to it because now Dallo is like the focal point of this. And this is the way we started under Ten Hag this season. You guys remember that video I did where Dallo was being used to kind of invert, become part of a pivot, and really things were starting to build through him. But I don't think mentally he can do that. I think that he's just not that player. He's not that leader on there. So he can get excited when he makes a good tackle or whatever, or he gets a goal, but anybody can do that. I need to see more from Dallo. I think that's just the difference is that he's just like Anthony. He's kind of gotten his confidence rattled a little bit by some of these moments. So on Rude, everything. My biggest concern, and it's been, and like while we're talking about it, and this has been a concern of mine for a couple of years now. And I'll be honest, it started as concern, but now it's almost like the norm. And I said it in the title, like Old Trafford is no longer a fortress. Teams simply show up and they have no fear. They have no respect for us anymore. They're not afraid to play Manchester United. When relegation sides like Leicester, like Southampton or Coventry last year make you look this bad, like Southampton were by far the better side in that match that we ended up winning. For 80 minutes, they looked like the best team in the world. And it's the same with Leicester, quite frankly. Bournemouth did the same thing. Newcastle did the same thing. Again, Coventry last year did the same thing. You can't say it's a lack of quality because on paper, we should be handling these sides easily. We should. And I don't want to go in and say it's a foregone conclusion because I think that that's not a good mentality. But on paper, when you look at it, you should be sitting there saying we've got Champions League winners, World Cup winners. We've got full internationals. We should be winning these games easily. But we're not. Is it complacency? Is it a lack of mentality to put in the hard yards to get a little mud and grass stains on your kit? Is it just the 50-50s or the 1v1s? I don't know. Do these players think that their CVs or their skill or their numbers or their wage, they think these things excuse them from having to do the dirty work on the pitch to actually have to dig deeper? Is that what's going on? I keep hitting I have like little drawstring on my pants, but they're metal, so they keep hitting. Sorry if you guys hear that. I don't know what it is, but something's got to change. Amorim has said recently that we're looking at players now in the market who are young, who are hungry. So maybe that's the place to start. You know, you guys have said we did this when we did our New Year's resolutions video. We need to fix the mentality. And unfortunately, you can't really train that. You can kind of in a kind of secondhand way train it like we've seen with Garnacho, but that's more of a conditioning thing than a training thing. But you have to look at mentality in the market, and it's a hard thing to assess. I think there are players out there who do possess that. There are players who do have fight, who do have high standards, who won't let their teammates drag them down to our current level, if that makes sense. But it's going to take a while because you can't fix it all in one window. Goal says, why is Amorim cannot see that? Collier, Casemiro, Ugarte are the pivot. Play 3 defenders at the back with 2 wingers as wingbacks. Ruud has settled 80% of the team, but Amorim, the genius, ripped it all up. I think we don't have wingers. And I've said this for a number of years now. We haven't had real wingers who get some chalk on their boots for a while. For years we've had nothing but inverted wingers who want to cut in, who want to shoot, and so we got rid of two of them. Now that was a criticism I had of us in the January. We got rid of two wide players and we didn't replace any. You can argue that maybe we replaced them in Dorgu, but again, I don't know if that's quite the same. We do need a little bit more help, but it's going to take time. I do think that I would have liked to maybe see Collier play a little bit yesterday. Obviously, Casemiro came on later. I don't think Casemiro is the way forward, though, personally, but I do think that Collier, and we do need another midfielder. Maybe when Collier and Mainu both get a couple years older, I think that could easily be a really good pivot. I do think Ugarte's in there as well, though. Lionhearts wants to know if you are Amorim out, George. Is it too early to be Amorim out? I'll let you guys work that out between yourselves. On the day, it was a case of, unfortunately, same shit, different day. Again, we were outworked, we were out physical, out energied. Those aren't words, but I'm going to say them anyway. It was just, and also it was too easy to cut through us with simple passes. That happened a couple times. Rude did a really good job of, again, exploiting our wingbacks and really the lack of the winger mentality. He kind of overloaded his team in wider areas to give them options. It looked like they always had an extra player on the pitch at times just because of always having a free man. I thought our pivot, there were times where the two midfield players they weren't really marking anybody. They weren't really doing anything. They were just kind of standing there. And it was giving Leicester all sorts of joy on the wide areas. And it was a simple tactic, but it was effective in that first half. I do think, George, on some of what you're saying, that Amorim does need to start getting more from the squad. Yes, a lot of these players aren't good enough. A lot of them don't fit the system, but they're the only ones he has. As a manager, at some point, you do have to find a way to work with what you have. I'm not saying change the system, do a back four or anything like that, but stop experimenting, play the players in their best positions, get us moving the ball up the pitch like we saw yesterday in the second half. We can't play this slowly that we're playing right now. We can't keep doing this horseshoe pattern. We can do that when we're up by a goal and we're trying to see out a match in the last 5 minutes, but that can't be the go-to because it's too slow. Teams are too good at getting back into shape. Teams are too good at effectively pressing us in key areas. We have to move the ball quicker. Now, whether that's a system thing, whether that's a personnel thing, I'll let you guys decide. But Amorim needs to just tweak things in that regard, in my opinion. We scraped the win, but it was undeserved. We can't keep playing like this if we're going to try to salvage anything from this season. Even Amorim did not look happy after the final whistle. He did not look too excited when Maguire even scored that winner. He knows the performance wasn't good enough. It hasn't been for a while. In fact, I saw some footage. It looked like he held a training session on the pitch at Old Trafford after the match because he knows, like, you guys aren't going home. We need to work on this shit. So you guys let me know what you thought. Goals for George beat me to it. Yeah, anyone on Loan Watch will see that Anthony scored in like 10 minutes today for Real Betis. Good, get that price tag up. That's what we want to see. That's the whole point of loans for players like Anthony. I did tell you, though, that when people leave United, whether they're managers or players, they tend to do well. And then when they come to United, even if they were good before they got here, they go downhill. Something in the water at Old Trafford. The under-21s beat Spurs yesterday, so that was good. So a little bit of a two for yesterday as far as wins go. The women play Wolves in a couple hours, so if you guys want to support the women's side, you can watch that as well, maybe. I think it's at Wolves, so I'm not sure if it's going to be televised, but we will see. Got more FA Cup action today. The only one I was really going to watch today would probably be Brighton versus Chelsea. That could probably be an interesting match, and then I might watch that Madrid derby later on as well. Pretty slow day. We're not going to play again first team for another week, so it's going to be a long week. A lot of FA Cup action this week, but let you guys see what you guys got going on Saturday. But yeah, like Goal said, Anthony scored today. Amorim is disrespecting Casemiro by bringing him on for 1 minute. I don't understand managers. I mean, I don't know if it's disrespect to me. I think that was just tactical to kill some time. It was already into stoppage time, so it's just to kill some time. We've all been saying for a while that, Casemiro's on his way out. We've been trying to sell Casemiro, so I don't blame managers too much for not using players that either don't want to be here or they don't want. I mean, but again, George, Ten Hag, Casemiro was on his way out last year. You guys remember he was horrible against coverage. He was horrible against Liverpool this year. He didn't even feature in the matchday squad for the final last year. Like, Casemiro's on his way out. It's just the way it is. And so if you don't think a player is good enough, if you don't think what he brings is going to help, and even worse, if you think that what he brings is going to negatively impact you, you're not going to play him. It's just the way it is. But Casemiro's, if people are out here calling for Bruno to be sold and whatnot, then I mean Casemiro's got to be in that same boat at that point. He's older, he doesn't have it in his legs anymore. It just is what it is. Ghost of George says, I'm not amorim out, but I am bullshit out. I don't like to blindly follow managers. There's a difference between blindly following and just supporting. Like I said, understanding and even agreeing is not necessarily a requisite for support, whether it's in this manager case or like in relationships or something. If my wife decided tomorrow she wanted to be a professional like alligator wrestler, I'd be like, I wouldn't understand it, I wouldn't agree with it, but I'm like, okay, cool. I love you, I'll support you. If that's your dream, go for it. I don't and so again, it's one of those things, George, where to a degree it almost doesn't matter what we think about the decisions. Like we can discuss it, but at the end of the day, the manager, like we said with Ten Hag, they're going to do what they're going to do, what they think is best, and they're the ones who are going to face the consequences. I wish that the decisions they make had more positive outcomes, because that would mean what does affect us. That would mean that results get better and stuff. It is what it is. We can't on one hand criticize these same players that we've had starting for so many years, and then turn around and wonder necessarily why we're still struggling. We're still struggling because some of them are just not good enough. But I do think that there's room for Amorim to improve in the way he sets us up and things like that. And we've talked about that. So everybody's got a role. He admitted it. We all know it. I don't buy too much. If you're referring to some of the things he says in pressers, I don't buy 100% into things that managers say in pressers. It can tell us a lot, but at the same time, a lot of it is for the camera. So you guys let me know your thoughts. Those are mine. Again, undeserved, but I'll take it at the end of the day. Got some other stuff planned for this week. So you guys enjoy your Saturday. Please hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. If you haven't yet gone and watched the Lisandro Martinez replacement center back video, I did put the link in the description. Go ahead and give that another watch. Until then, if you weren't able to catch the live, leave a comment. You guys know I'll get to it. Lionheart says at the end of the day, we're just shit. Yeah, that's true too. We are. But thank you guys for stopping by. It's always a good conversation. I don't mind a little bit of back and forth. I don't mind even differing opinions. That's why we're here. So everyone get your thoughts in. I will see you guys on the next one. Until then, enjoy your day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.